Well, it is 5:30 and I call this special meeting of the Shelburne Select Board to order. I do not have the minutes in front of me because or the agenda in front of me. I didn't get a chance to print them out today because I was in chemo. So Terry, if you could help bounce me through. Do we have acceptance of minutes of previous?
No, we don't have them yet because if you recall, this is a quick last minute meeting scheduled.
Okay. All right, cool. So with that said,
I think our main purpose is this meta grant, and we may have some short any other business type things.
okay, just wanted to double check that. Thank you. So we're here to hear from the Energy Committee about a grant they had wrote up for energy. I can't remember. So who would like to take that from the Energy Committee and move that forward to do the presentation?
Well, I'm not with the Energy Committee. I thought that Tom Johnson was going to be here. So if you want to wait for him, we can do that. Otherwise, I'm happy to go ahead.
Why don't you start, Tricia? Because
okay,
I've
great.
been on the.
Yep. Okay, so we found out about this municipal energy technical assistance grant through the Department of Energy Resources. Weston and Sampson told us about it. There is no match from the town of Shelburne for this grant, and it's to conduct a site assessment to look at available energy resources, explore different technology options, and also conduct an economic and financial analysis and check in with the regulatory requirements for that. So the Energy Committee held a meeting and they decided that they wanted to pursue this grant to look at the Town Hall, Memorial Hall, and Cowell Gym to look at putting solar panels up and battery storage, and for Memorial Hall to convert the remaining oil burning furnace over to some type of green energy. And Tom's here, so I will let him pick it up from there. Tom, I was just explaining kind of the background of the grant.
Hi, sorry I'm late. I'm delighted that the select board agreed to have this meeting tonight, and I haven't heard what's Tricia said, but I think you've had a chance to have a look at what we sent you in the last 24 hours. And basically, we're simply asking for your approval to seek a $15,000 grant from Green Communities for this municipal energy technical assistance grant to help us do what we can with Town Hall and with Cowell Gym to make them zero emissions buildings. It would set a great example for the rest of the town, for the business community, of what we can do with a building to lower our carbon footprint.
I feel like the grant is pretty solid because we addressed all of the points that they needed to have addressed. Shelburne is an environmental justice community, which boosts the approval rate for or gives you extra points anyway for the assessment. Since we got the quote from Weston and Sampson that shows that they will actually use the grant to conduct the 5 areas that the grant wants addressed. I feel like we're in a really strong place going forward.
So what does the work from the town have to go on this side of that?
Tom?
Bob, I can't answer that directly. you know, the work is really going to be done by Weston and Sampson, and undoubtedly they will have some questions for Terry and for others, just like Tricia and I have had questions in the last couple of days of, you know, how many people use the buildings? When did we convert town hall from oil furnace to mini splits on the main floor, that sort of thing. But I do not anticipate any major requirement of town personnel involved in achieving what this grant would achieve.
I would agree. And the only thing that we have agreed to in this grant is that the Energy Committee would be the ones to kind of lead the way through this grant process. And I'll be here to help in any way I can too, to help get some information like we did today.
So the concept of the grant is good, but I feel your approach has been backwards, and communication sides for the town has been a bit difficult in understanding the grant process. Because generally boards will come before the select board to inquire about applying for grants and having the approval, or at least the board aware of it. That doesn't appear to, it seems to have been the cart before the horse, which has happened a lot with the Energy Committee. And the short notice has been one of my biggest frustrations. To get the information dropped 24 hours on a Sunday afternoon, I don't think is an ideal way for us to have the ability to fully review the grant and have the opportunity to formulate lots of questions. Andrew, you had something you wanted to add?
I share a lot of your feelings about this one in particular, Bob. I mean, I'm going to vote yes on this because I think there is, you know, some potential gain to be made in completing a kind of comprehensive study of these two buildings. However, I feel like the gain is smaller than I would like. For $15,000. We have done a fair amount of work on these two buildings using Green Communities funds already. We have in the queue another Green Communities grant, you know, coming up in a couple of years to put heat pumps into Memorial Hall Theater. So that will be a big step towards decarbonizing Memorial Hall if we succeed in that. So we already know those things that we've done with the hall. In terms of the new renewable energy opportunities on the roofs of these buildings, again, you know, there's maybe 12 kilowatts total of power potential up there. That would be generous in my estimate, given the obstructions that are on those roofs. And the fact that they're both membrane roofs makes that whole project a big question mark. You know, that's a hard sell to put solar on membrane roofs, and it's going to be you know, I'm not confident that that's going to happen. So given all that, it feels like $15,000 is going to be a small gain for this. And I guess if we had more time to position this money more strategically, the questions that I have for getting the town to net zero that I would love to have Weston and Sampson do for us is look at all four of our buildings and our, you know, future use as we convert our vehicles to electric. What is our total town energy load? And what are the opportunities that we have to meet that load with solar? And in my view, those opportunities are not really on those two roofs. Even if we did get 12 kilowatts of power up there, that's going to be a very small piece of our total energy load. And we're going to have to look in other places to do solar and have perhaps, you know, difficult conversations with our voters about ground mounted solar, because I think that's what it's going to take. So that's my big picture look at how to spend planning money on where we go as a town in decarbonizing. But I recognize this is a last minute opportunity. It's not, you know, we're under the deadline. We're going to get a little bit out of this, and we're going to feel like we overspent on it, you know, but there it is. And I will vote yes for it.
Hey, Rick?
Yeah, Andrew, it's tough to disagree with anything you've said. Not that that's my object. But I come down the opposite on it, in that all those reasons are exactly why I can't vote for this, especially the two membrane roofs for minimal solar panels on those two buildings. In the application itself, the box that we checked for what we're going to look for, it says investigation of clean energy resilience opportunities at critical municipal buildings. The Cowell Gym is not one, in my opinion. It's a beautiful building. I have wonderful memories from it and enjoy going there regularly. But it's not a critical building. So, you know, there's several reasons beyond that. Bob's concern about the hurry up. My experience has been every time somebody gives me a hurry up, we need this yesterday, I'm always sorry if I say, yeah, okay, go ahead. The materials that we didn't get actually until today, that the sentences about what you're looking for at each building, let me just read it. This one being for Memorial Hall. Options for renewable generation sources, a clean energy HVA system on the second floor, and energy storage options. Other one was a little more interesting in that it used the words roof-mounted solar panels, energy storage to reduce carbon footprint to zero, etc. I think Shelburne's doing its part already in that regard. I think Andrew's points are well taken. We have bigger fish to fry. The cart before the horse comment, I actually had mused myself. One example that concerns me still is the solar project for the pole barn at the town yard, where the sales pitch at the town meeting was for 27 point something kilowatt hours. All the math and the selling points were a 6-year payback, yada, yada. Turns out 15 kW is our cap. Was at our last meeting. And so I think those numbers are suspect. And if they are, then maybe that should go back to town meeting and be represented to see if in fact the new numbers come out as something the townspeople want to support. But, you know, that's just an example of, in my opinion, us rushing into things. And I don't see any reason to do it with this. I think the gain and benefit in the big picture isn't there in this particular one. And thank you for your time.
I agree about the membrane roofs, that in my opinion, those are off limits, given how much we spend on the membrane roofs and the added weight and extra holes in the roof. It concerns me greatly, as we put a lot of time and energy in getting those on. Andrew is very correct on his analysis of what is going to be the return for our money, and was, in my opinion, very accurate in regards to we have larger fish to fry, and we'll, you know, sure, it's going to glean some information, but, you know, is it the right information we need? So would you care to address those? Andrew, go ahead.
I just want, before we get their response, I just wanted to make a few points of clarification there. Rick, I believe we are at 25 kilowatts is the cap we are aiming aiming at with the pole barn project. So we are not far from the maximum 27 that we think is available up there. It's a little bit of, in the last meeting that we attended with Energy Committee members, it's a bit of a moving target because the technology for solar panels is changing constantly, and the power output of each panel is actually going up. So if you want to purchase more expensive panels that have higher wattage output, you can actually put more kilowatts on the roof. So there's a, apples and oranges kind of formula up there of, do you go with cheaper panels and fill up the roof, or do you go with more expensive panels and leave room for later? It's kind of.
Can I ask a question on that, Andrew?
Sure.
At our last meeting, I thought you said that the 28 or whatever, 27.8 kW was not feasible or practical, and that in fact Eversource had a 15 cap, not 25, wait, and the cap being where they would give us the money at the retail rate, let's call it.
Right,
We're
the net
beyond
metering
that.
rate.
We can put all the panels we want in beyond that, but they're not going to give us squat for it. Therefore, the financial benefit of spending it to put it in made no sense. So why
So
are we looking at 25 now?
So there's the reason being that there's some debate on where the cap is right now and where it will be a few months from now. I think we're getting new information on that. One, Jeff told us at that meeting after I said, oh, it's at 15, he said, no, actually the cap is at 25. And then other people have said, no, the cap is moving to 25 or maybe is moving to 30. So I don't have a solid yes on where the cap is right now, but maybe Jeff can enlighten us on that if he's got new information. The other piece just on that project, which is actually a whole separate conversation from what they're bringing forward with this meta thing, is that I was deeply disappointed that we somehow, Mark and company, spec that pole barn without the engineering structural supports to support solar, because we knew going into that the voters voted that pole barn not just to shelter equipment, but to provide a south-facing roof for solar panels. It was a 2-for-1 deal there, that we voted the pole barn and the $110,000 as a tandem project. That was how it was sold at town meeting. So to have that go through the spec process and wind up with an under-spec roof was a pretty disappointing project failure in my view.
We're not necessarily sure it's an under spec roof, because Mark has reached out to the sales representative who is reaching out to their engineer. As we had that conversation when we were talking about getting the roof design to have it be able to hold solar.
Good.
And we have the solar store saying one thing and our folks saying something else. So we're not sure, but that's going to get off topic. I hope it
comes out in the positive column, because that was a very clear signal that we sent at town meeting.
No, I understand, but that's kind of getting off topic.
Right. No, I mean, just to go back, but I just wanted to clarify for Rick that whole pole barn thing, one, it's separate from this, and two, the numbers are, needing clarification there, but are not as far off as you made it sound there. And, I think that, I guess what I would advocate for in this particular setting is, if this meta grant money is a kind of one-time affair, and yes, we're doing it at the last minute, and yes, in my view, it's kind of underwhelming what we're going to get out of this, I still am voting in support of it, because it's not money that we can use in some other way. It's just, here it is, use it or lose it, you know? So I'd rather use it than lose it, but that's where I come out on it.
Okay, so I'd like to give the Energy Committee an opportunity to respond to our thoughts that we had.
Yeah,
Sure.
thanks, Bob. You know, I'd love to get out for a beer with you and Rick and Andrew sometime and just chat about these things. We got
Can't do
to
that,
you
but understood.
regarding the Meta grant as soon as we heard about it. You know, it's the unfortunate fact that we just learned about this Meta grant of a few days ago. And the deadline for applying for the grant is the end of this week. And so we're moving on it as fast as we can. Now, should we have asked for a study of 4 municipal buildings rather than 2 municipal buildings? Quite frankly, I think that would have been spreading the engineers too thin. We need engineers to look at our buildings and to give us advice on what we can do and what we cannot do. Now, whether or not solar panels can go on a membrane roof or not is, you know, none of us are experts in that issue. We need experts to advise us on this. We do know that solar panels have gone on many membrane roofs throughout this state, including many buildings at Harvard University, where I would assume they know what they're doing. We have to do what we can to lower our carbon footprint. This is extremely important. I couldn't emphasize enough how important it is for our kids and our grandkids to do what we can to lower our carbon footprint. We're asking for permission to get $15,000 for free at no cost to our town to help us do what we can to lower our carbon footprint. And I'm sorry it's coming in late. We're doing what we can with it. And we're not necessarily, you know, the engineers may very well tell us, look, the support of those buildings and the nature of those membrane roofs are not adequate for solar panels. Then the question is, okay, where do we get our renewable energy? And then it probably comes to some sort of community solar investment rather than trying to go on the membrane roofs. But we need experts to be advising us on this. And we have the opportunity to get this at no cost from the town. So, like I say, I'd love to just sit down with you guys sometime informally and just have a chat on what we're really trying to do here. And this is a way to get a little bit of free money to get some qualified engineers to help us do what we can to lower our carbon footprint. It's about our kids. It's about our grandkids. And it's not about taxes in this particular instance.
So informally, it will never be able to happen when you put 3 of us in the same room talking about a subject.
All right,
So
I'll take you on one at a time.
So Terry, do you have thoughts?
Jeff has his hand up. I'd rather hear from.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
That's okay. No, I would actually, I don't want to get off topic. I just wanted to clarify with Andrew that, yes, indeed, the confusion came from the solar on the roof. From the residential is limited at a 15 cap, and they are in the process of running that through the state and upping it to 25 kilowatts for residents. But it's already, as part of that, they already raised the rate for municipal to 25 kW, and they're actually talking about if the residential passes, it'll actually up to 60 kW that municipal can do at one site, which would be tremendous if that happens. So anyway, just wanted to verify that one. So
Thank you. That's helpful, Jeff.
Terry, because you would be somewhat involved in it, and I know you're pressed for time, and I don't really want you involved in this other than how do I get access to this information? This is how you do it, rather than you getting that information and things.
I really don't have an opinion at this point. It sounds like the Energy Committee is willing to work with Weston and Sampson, so I'm hoping that the burden wouldn't fall on my shoulders.
Bob,
And-
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
oh,
I got
sorry.
several hands.
I'm
No, that's
sorry.
all right. I'll
Tricia?
wait till the back end.
Thank
Sure.
you. I do want to say that when we met with Weston and Sampson, we did bring up the issue of the membrane roof because we knew that that was a concern. And they said they would just, that's what they specialize in, is actually going. They have engineers, resiliency engineers, and they can go and look and find out if the roof is compatible or not with that. We completely understand that question. And yeah, this was a really, really fast turnaround time. And I wrote this grant proposal in a day to get this out to you guys as quickly as possible. We didn't have the proposal from Weston and Sampson until Thursday of last week. So that's why we were just trying to crank everything out as quickly as possible. I really want to echo what Tom said. It's not just about us. I just want to remind everybody that 2023 so far is going to be the hottest year on record. The trend regarding climate change is absolutely going through the roof. And I think that every little bit that we can do is going to help move the needle. Even if it's a little bit, it's going to help move the needle away from fossil fuels sooner rather than later. And I, for one, don't want to be one of those people who looks back and says, oh my gosh, if I had only done something more. And I feel like, we've tried our best and understand now that it was probably not the best for the select board to get all of this to you so quickly. But with the time frame we had, we really honestly did the very best we could. The town will not have a single cent that they have to put towards this. Terry did answer a few questions today, but I also reached out to FERCog myself, and I talked to a lot of different people on other committees in the town to try to get all the information that we have. And I would just hope that you could honor the hard work that went into this and at least just try to get some answers. The membrane roof question was front of mind when we talked to Weston and Sampson. I'm sure that then that'll be settled, completely put to bed, and they can say, yes, you can do it, but it's going to cost this, or no, you can't do it at all, or you can do it and we've got a new way of doing it. I mean, the technology is changing all the time. So I would just really encourage you to think about it in those terms as well. It's not going to cost Shelburne anything. And you've got tons of volunteers here who are happy to help to try to move this.
Rick had
Sorry,
something.
go ahead, Rick. Yeah.
I'd like to thank you, Trish and Tom, for the work you put into this. I'm not demeaning in any fashion what you've put together. The quality of the work, absolutely amazing in your turnaround time. I've read it once. I might have absorbed half of it. If I was lucky, I'll give it another shot. My problem with it is still that it's specifically targeting solar panels on 2 flat roofs. I'm not a fan. I don't care. It's in writing in your proposal. I just read it to you. So, that along with, today we see in the paper that Mass Save has been deemed inferior in its production compared to our neighboring states. And there's an entire overhaul coming to Mass Save program. We don't know what that may bring for opportunities for us. As you say, technology is changing every day. And lastly, this grant, yes, we're at deadline because you just found out about it late, and good on you to try to give it a go. But it comes up every year according to the grant application. So we can wait a year. Climate change has been happening since the planet was formed. And is 12 months what we do on those two roofs going to matter? I don't believe so. So I'm still passing on it.
Andrew, you had a comment?
Yeah, I mean, just two things. One, Rick, I wanted to just make one effort to persuade you not on the roof question, because I think that I agree with Tricia. I think that is something that we need engineering know-how to, make any sort of persuasive argument there. I'm as skeptical as you are from the get-go, but I'm not an engineer, so I don't, I can't really speak to that without an engineering assessment. The Cowell Gym, though, I would say does actually have more than perhaps meets the eye there in terms of this project, because I see that as a potential resiliency resource for the community if it can be made energy more, not so much energy self-sufficient. I don't think the Cowell Gym has that potential because those mini splits use more energy than is available on that roof. But if it had some backup batteries and maybe some solar power, it would have more potential as an emergency site that could function in the event of a town emergency. And I think that's actually something we should be looking at, and is a valuable function for that building that I think is worth something. The question I have for Tricia and Tom is more strategic in terms of, if we go for this grant tonight, are we foreclosing the opportunity to perhaps get a more interesting assessment next year, in terms of, can we reapply to Meta and ask them other engineering questions about other buildings and the sort of bigger picture things that I laid out, or is that going to be harder to do if we spend the $15,000 now?
You want to take that? Yeah.
Sure. A community can apply for a Meta grant every year. There is no limit on the number of Meta grants that you apply for.
Okay, so we're not
and-
closing that off if we take this money now.
No, we're not.
Okay.
And Rick, again, we are not promoting in this proposal that we go with solar on either of these buildings. We want it looked at. We want engineers to tell us whether or not that's a way for us to go. But we're not directing these engineers to tell us when we can put solar on the roofs. We're asking the engineers to have a look at these roofs, look at their structural capabilities, and see if some solar can go up there. And yes, I totally accept the fact that, say, the roof of Cowell cannot support enough solar panels to meet the electrical demand of the mini splits that are now in that building. But the question is, where can we find the renewable energy, the renewable electricity to support both of these buildings? And how do we go about replacing the HVAC system on the top of Memorial Hall, which is overdue? It's propane fired now. We want to get it to being all electric as well, and finding a clean energy source for that electricity. We're just trying to lower our carbon footprint. It doesn't cost the town a penny. And I'd be happy to go to West End Pub and bet you a beer that we would get a lot out of this particular grant for $15,000, not a penny of which is coming out of the town coffers.
I would just say, Bob and Rick, that last piece that Tom mentioned is actually probably the most valuable piece of this study, which is, if we can get a engineering assessment of the HVAC needs for the Memorial Hall Theater, that would queue us up for a Green Communities grant application in not this coming year, but the following year, that which is kind of when we have envisioned that going forward. And that to me would be real value coming out of this study, because it would set us up for about $150,000 of funding we could go after to actually install a new heating and cooling system in the theater, which is, the old one is now 25 years old and it's about at the end of its life. So I think that to me is a persuasive argument for this study, just for that one piece. But you know, that's where I am on it.
So we've beaten this horse into the ground. I'm fading, and either we'll close the meeting or we take a vote, because after spending 8 hours in oncology today, I want to get out and just, I pushed to get here. So with that, we're done with any further debate and discussion.
Then
We're here, huh?
Then I would make a motion that we deny the request for this grant proposal to proceed.
Is there a second?
Well, it's going backwards to how I would have moved it, but I guess you can get at it either way, so I will second it.
Okay. So with that, the motion is made to decline the offer of the grant. If we vote yes, we won't be going to accept the grant or sign off on the grant. If no,
Then
we're
we would
voting to
accept
accept the
another
grant.
motion to accept it. If we vote
Correct.
no, I will move that we accept the grant. How's that?
Oh. Okay, well, procedurally, I think we now have to do
It
this
would have been
vote.
easier to do it the other way around, but let's just go ahead.
Okay. So all those in favor of not accepting the grant application as presented in the motion, please signify by saying aye. Rick,
Aye.
Andrew,
No.
myself, just given some of the things, I'm going to vote no, with comments or frustration on the fact of, this is why we need to have things pushed out further to have had this discussion before going into it. So at this point, the motion is declined.
I
Denied.
will now move that we accept the grant.
Is there a second?
And authorize the,
As-
whatever it is, the submission of the grant.
I'll second to
Is-
give it a vote.
Okay, thank you. So now the motion is to accept the
Or authorize you
app-
to submit the grant
authorized the
application.
grant signature.
Yeah.
So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Rick,
No.
Andrew?
Yes.
So this is where I'm going to have a little bit of the opportunity to say, don't ever do this to it again, grant committee, energy committee. It seems to be becoming the habit that when I get an email from Tom saying, you need to have a meeting, it doesn't set well with me. And being that directive. And what you heard through the debate here was our frustration in regards to why short notice doesn't play well and how the town always does business. Because I won't, while I'm chair, I won't tolerate this type of discussion with now that warning is in place. But I will vote yes and the motion passes. Tom?
Thank you very much. I understand your frustration. I'd love to have a chat with you sometime one-on-one, and I hope we can do that. And I will make every effort possible to work with you in a way that is more accepting and more traditional in the town's operations. This was a last-minute issue. I apologize for that, and I thank you.
Is there any other business to come before this board?
I think we do
Right.
have some things, yeah.
Okay. Terry?
We have a resignation from Cynthia Bettner as the energy advocate for the Mass Save program.
Okay, we have Cynthia here.
I am.
And is this a vote or do we just accept it as presented?
Typically, the resignation is accepted.
Okay, so with that, I assume Andrew and Rick, you're okay with the acceptance of this as well?
With regret.
With
Yes,
regret,
I
yeah.
think,
You did a heck of a job.
I attended the last meeting in which Cynthia described her process of getting to this point, and I think it comes after a very strong effort on her part to, over the last couple of years, as our staff person for the Energy Committee and for the Mass Save Communities First project, and she and Jeff and others have made, I think, a really substantial effort with a fairly limited number of hours and not enough hours for the amount of bureaucracy that the current Mass Save version requires. And note to Rick, yes, that hopefully that will become less bureaucratic if they adopt some of the reforms that they're talking about in the paper. You know, Cynthia, congratulations. And I'm also pleased to hear that you have recruited some potential prospects to replace you. So thank you for that as well.
I agree. Thank you, Cynthia, for all that you've done. So with that, we'll accept the resignation as presented. And again, thank you with regrets for the work.
Thank
Anything
you.
else?
You got Tom over there.
Yeah.
Make it short, Tom.
Sorry, Bob. Listen, number one, Tricia has done, Cynthia has done an incredible job, and I won't belabor that point, but Cynthia has agreed to hold on as we are breaking in the new energy advocate. So we do not want her to go off the payroll until she has overlapped with the new whoever we hire for the new energy advocate. Is that right, Cynthia?
It is, yes. We have two candidates that the Energy Committee will be meeting on this Thursday at their committee meeting. So hopefully one of them could work out.
And therefore, we do not want her to be considered no longer an employee of the town until we have undergone this overlap period.
Okay, so noted. And we'll make sure to get that to happen. Anything else to come before this board?
Yes, I had forwarded a request from the Moonlight Magic Group about placement of the Christmas tree on the front steps of Town Hall.
So, okay, with that, I believe you had suggested up in the balcony rather than on the front steps.
Yes,
It's where it's always been, right? In previous years.
the town has always put a tree on the balcony. The
Yeah.
group that organizes Moonlight Magic has traditionally placed a large tree on the pocket park area, but this year it's under construction, so it can't be placed there.
So Terry, Bob, if I may. I just had a point of clarification on what it is they're asking for. Because it sounded from the email I read that they wanted to have a kind of set of light strands representing a larger tree come all the way down from the balcony and get attached down below somewhere around the front steps. Is that what they're proposing or not?
It sounds like it, and then the tree that we traditionally place on the balcony would appear as though it's a tree topper.
Right.
But given the amount of people that attend Moonlight Magic, it just seems dangerous to block the front steps to Town Hall.
Yeah, that was the main question I had, was whether you thought that was a safety issue or not in terms of these strands of lights coming down from the balcony, you know. I thought it sounded like a nice looking vision. I just couldn't quite picture where they were going to get anchored at the bottom and if they would be a tripping hazard or something like that. So I don't know. What do you think?
I just didn't think it was a safe idea.
Oh,
They
so
said that the
you're
ro-
just saying just limit it to the tree topper thing up on the balcony.
Yes, unless they can find another location. I suggested perhaps the sidewalk area by Beth and Francis. It's much larger there. And if they got permission from the business owner, perhaps they could place a tree there. I think they're looking for a tree that has great effect.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
The safety concern was my biggest thing in regarding the strands of light. Rick,
Yeah, I agree. I think they can find another spot. I don't think it's prudent to put it there with that concern of safety.
I
is
guess
this
I
a
would.
vote or
I
is
would.
this by consensus?
Well, Bob, I would just say I would not reject the entire thing out of hand. I would say if they need a backup plan and they want to put a small tree or a small light display just up in the balcony area where it's not a safety hazard, that I would support that, you know. But if they don't like that idea, then maybe they should find a different location.
I
Yep,
agree.
I agree. So would you like to pass it on, Terry?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. Any other business to become before the board?
No.
I move we adjourn.
Motion's made. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor for adjournment, please signify by saying aye. Rick,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
myself is aye. Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you, folks.